staff aren't always aware of that.
No.
So would you have any tips, having obviously worked as a clinical director for over 30 years in dealing with trauma recovery in high needs teenagers, can you give any advice to parents on how to perhaps handle those distance dumps, the ones, where the kids ring home and it may really be a traumatic situation for them, but in reality it's, normal daily occurrences. They don't get to go home and offload. They're back in a boarding house with 30, 40 or 50 other kids of varying ages.
Super tricky, isn't it? Because so much of it's about the context of the family and the way the values within the family have reacted. And sometimes that reactivity is part of the way people feel heard and that they feel cared for and nurtured. So I think it's a very sort of complex discussion we're having, because it is all about how family fit with this sort of distance relationship. And some are really mature and prepared, as you flagged, and they it's a well-worn expectation, and others not so much. One of the things I thought is sort of probably worth mentioning is so much of the way it's set up and the values of the school and the identity of boarders in school and the way that's communicated in the preparation is super important. And I would say as a protective factor, it's also about having that linkage with a key person in the boarding system. And that doesn't necessarily need to be a senior person, but it does need to be a person. And that's where you get the opportunity to reality test what's actually happened. And I think that that's probably, as a tip for a parent, a really important handbrake to make sure that you reality test with both the young person, but also with the boarding staff. What's the context, and also awareness of what's the broader context. My youngest daughter is currently in her final years with HSC, and we've been peppered even in the last 6 weeks with reminders from the boarding team saying, don't forget, trials are on, everything's pretty hectic, you will have tears and you will have SOS messages, and that's okay and that's normal and we've got this. And it's actually been really positive, I think, to have those reminders to the parent team to say, don't forget, this is actually hectic and we have got a group of girls all, putting a lot of pressure on themselves to do well. So I think that proactive communication has been really helpful, not the sort of waiting for the check-in, certainly being, and then the process for parents to knowingly reality test the discussion.
When you say knowingly reality test, what do you mean?
Well, I think it's very easy when you're a long way away to perhaps fall into a very reactive space when your child's distressed, because you're so far away. And so I think the pause is super important. So when you get the SOS at 10 o'clock at night or 9:30 when the phones go in, that you actually make a commitment to check in the morning and then talk it through rather than necessarily, jump. I guess I'll just put a caveat against that, because my work is definitely in the space where we've got very, very distressed kids. And I would say that probably the one thing that I'm not confident I've seen done really well, and as I said, we've had 4 kids in boarding and 6 different schools, is that when there is a child that is under distress, that pastoral care around proactive management is probably an area where I think schools do struggle. And it is a specialist area. And I think that that's an area when you do have a partnership with a family where a child has, a pre-existing or an emerging challenge, that is something that really needs to be dealt with in a special way and in a very proactive way, with some safety planning and some agreements within the school. Really tricky, because no one wants to step into that space and put the red flag up. But if you don't, then it can be really problematic for everyone.
And Lisa, so in those situations, you would highlight, I guess, as Tom has and Kate, that it's important for families to have those conversations with the prospective school before they begin